I've been excited about sitting down with Harvey Lewis for the past couple weeks. And I think you're inspirational, not because of the guy I've known yet that hopefully I'm going to get to know today, selfishly, but you've done things that a lot of us think are close to impossible, unattainable. How in the world could somebody run hundreds of miles without stopping? But there's a few other unique things. So you had an awesome 2021, right?
Yeah, it was quite a dream.
You had some wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, 2022 has been right up there as well.
So that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
okay.
And I know 2023, we're not slowing down. So we keep on going with that momentum.
So your 2021. So to talk about, so you're an ultra marathon runner. You are a public school educator. You've been the star of a documentary, right? Like Harvey, like Son.
Yes, yeah.
It's inspiring.
Yes. Thank you.
And so that documentary was about trying to break the time record for running the Appalachian. Is it Appalachian? What is it?
Oh, man, you can make up I say things wrong all the time according to my fiance. So, yeah, I think you can say whatever way you want.
You're going to be in good company today with me.
Good.
This is nice.
Good. No, that's great. I think that's pretty good. I love hearing different ways.
And so 2,160 miles or 2,106?
You know what? What's interesting is it actually changes slightly every year. Based on like what's happening. I mean, because it's across 13 states. So it's somewhere around there. It's somewhere in that 2,200 range. And it's an area of the country that I thought I had an idea of, but when I went in and went across the whole distance, I was just absolutely amazed and surprised by sights in each and every state I came through.
The coming into every podcast, I try to do some research, but I don't want to do too much because I want to find out who the person is beyond what we can find online, right? But something else that's really important to you is a plant-based diet. Very important to you, right?
Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about that. I've been vegetarian since 1996, and vegan since 2016, and for me personally, I went that direction. My mom had a stroke back in '95, and she was only 54. She was a nurse, and it just really was something that shook me and caused me to change up my paradigm of thinking, because I really thought I grew up in. I was born in West Virginia. I lived in the the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania. I lived in Cleveland. And growing up, I think I was only exposed to one vegetarian in my whole life experience. So, so that was something that really has, arguably I'd say it's the main reason I'm able to do the things I'm doing now at 46, where I'm not slowing down. I don't feel injured. My knees are amazing. Like I feel like I'm, is stronger than any other point in my life, and a lot of it has to do with what we eat in this country.
So it's something that it's funny, and that's the stories that we get into a lot and through conversations. It's the origin, right? And so there's a couple fascinating things about Harvey that today I'm excited about figuring out and digging into, which I think connects with this entrepreneurial spirit. And the amount of time that you were running ultramarathon. So an ultramarathon, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're an expert, it's anything beyond a traditional marathon distance.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, which is it 26.2?
Two. Yeah.
Right? 13.1's a half, right?
Right.
So 26.2. But what I don't even know if you know when you hit 26 miles, though, because when you came in today, you ran. And I said, man, did you run here? Like, how perfect. And you're like, yeah, man. It was just a little jog through the woods. And but anything longer than a traditional marathon distance. And the amount of time and the amount of races that you had to run before you won one. Talk about that.
Well, it was a long time. but because growing up, I just was actually not. I went through a phase where I was built more like Chunk from Goonies, and I just really. I enjoyed eating, and I would eat a lot. And I would eat, like, when I would go to maybe like Taco Bell, I mean, they thought that we were having a party, and it was just my mom ordering for me alone. And this was like in middle school, going up. So yeah, it's kind of shocking to me in a sense that, like, I never won a race, or I never even came close to winning a race when I was in middle school or high school and I ran track. I was always situated more towards the middle of the back. And then it took me a long time of running ultras, actually. I think I didn't win my first race until 2004, the same summer I broke my neck. And it was a small race of 2 miles on the beach with like 13 people.
You were the 14th.
Right.
But isn't that where a lot of victories start? They start small.
It starts small. And it's just being persistent, perseverant, just gradual, trying to work on your craft, whatever that is, and wherever you are. I mean, whatever it is you're working in. I mean, whatever mode and passion you have. If you make it something that you are willing to give a almost obsessive amount of energy to, it's hard to stop that, and it's hard to stop some amount of growth. And it's been kind of wild seeing things develop across the years.
Do you remember the first moment in your life? Maybe it was eating all that Taco Bell. But do you remember the time you're like, I'm going to win this? When did it start? Like the 18 soft tacos in the bag?
Oh, man.
But like, when did that happen? So I think, did you run your first marathon at 15?
I ran my first marathon at 15, and I was far from, like, I was near the very back of the marathon. And at that age in life, I just didn't think it was possible to win the race. Like, I just didn't think I had the genetics to win the race.
So why'd you start? Why'd you run the first one then?
Right. I ran the marathon just to run the marathon. Like, because I did it for the challenge of finishing it. And, like, for me, it was a victory just to finish the race, even if I was the last person. So it didn't matter if I finished, wherever that was. Finishing the race was a big deal. It was like graduating high school or finishing a degree. It meant a lot to me. It didn't matter where I was in it.
Mm-hmm. Where'd that come from? That feeling. So you obviously did you feel that when you started the first marathon? Say, if I finish, that's my victory.
Well, yeah, it was definitely like something that was. It was a challenge that I, like, kind of threw out there, because I spontaneously came up with this idea of doing this marathon about 8 days before the race. So the furthest I'd even run was actually 8 miles. And my mom was fortunately very much, I was able to, like, persuade her into doing most things. and she's like, okay, yeah. So she agreed to signing me up for this race. And I told our kids in my track team, I'm like, I'm going to run this marathon, and I'm going to run at 8-minute pace. And they're like, oh, no way. It's like, Harvey, there is no way you're going to finish this race. So it was like a binary option. Either finishing was total victory, not finishing was total failure. So, like, just to finish and show our, like, guys on my track team, like, that it was possible and I could do it, or to myself or anything else out there. Like, that was something really kind of neat. And I think it has, like, an important message or theme behind this is, a lot of times we don't do something because we're afraid we're not going to be able to do it. So that's a huge thing, whether it's an entrepreneur, starting a business, whether it's, anything you dream of. Yeah. Like, it's such a big deal. So many times we get stopped because the number one thing is just taking the step and doing. No matter what happens, like, if you don't, like, take that initial step, you can't nothing happens.
And then everything starts stacking from there.
Yeah.
So that 8-minute without doing a bunch of calculations, is that sub 4 hour?
Oh yeah, I did not hit that. Yeah, I got to about I think I hit about mile 9, maybe mile 10, and I thought, oh my God, what did I get myself into here? Yeah, and then it was just like, fortunately, I found a couple other people that were looking like
folks.
zombies, and yeah, so we managed to like walk and run. And I mean, it seemed like I was crossing like the Sahara Desert, and I mean, it just seemed like the most excruciatingly tough, like physical, like exhausting thing you could ever dream of. But once I finished, I actually put that out of my mind. It's like that's one thing I don't really talk about, like the things that might be negative that you feel. Like I actually totally put those out of my mind now.
You remove them.
It mostly. So it's hard for me to even like talk about something and like present it in its level of difficulty of like how much it might feel.
Because it doesn't matter.
Because I just focus on like the positive aspects of like, I mean, I think a lot of people have that experience that like do running events, whether it's like a short race or a marathon or ultra. We tend to like kind of black out anything that was discomfort in the race, and 2 weeks later we're ready to sign up for another one.
Is that so that's an attribute and a characteristic that should be looked up to by so many of us, and here's why. Because you set your mind to it and you say, hey, this goal that I'm signing up for, regardless of the cost, I'm going to accomplish it. Doesn't matter how much time, how much pain, what the commitment, what the loss, I'm going to accomplish it. And if you set your mind that hard and that stern and focused on that outcome, you don't have to worry about the pain. And I think so often what we try to do, it's what I love about that applies across so many aspects. I'm sure in teaching, I'm sure the kids that you're trying to get to believe in themselves a little bit more and show them what's possible in life, but it's the same belief that you have to have in yourself on a 300-mile race. I think you have to say, because if you think about it, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd like to understand this. There's multiple moments in probably a 100-mile race, a 300-mile race, that if quitting's an option, you're going to.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, you really have to like make your mind. I mean, a lot of people do quit races. It's like, but for me personally, I've gotten to a point where it's I don't leave that as an option. Like it's not. I had it. Well, okay. If I go back to 2010, I did a race called the Spartathlon. It's a really amazing experience.
It's one of the top 10 in the world.
It's a cultural endeavor. You run following the original route of Pheidippides from Athens to Sparta, and it's 153 miles, and it goes across a nice set of mountains over about mile 100. And it's where, like the legend has it, that Pheidippides had this vision with the god Pan, and he gave him some special message that he brought back and helped them to beat the Persians. But in that, covering that mountain range, and in that race when I was there in 2010, I ended up getting to mile 116 and just feeling totally zapped, and I thought it wasn't possible to finish. So I quit the race at mile 116. And after the race, I reflected on it, and I was really kind of disappointed with myself. Not in a sort of way like beating myself up over it, but I just didn't want to do that ever again, because I realized that I actually had the force within me to still finish that race. Like, it wasn't the way I would have wanted to finish it. I would have had to like pretty much walk the whole rest of the race and struggle, just like give it an absolute struggle just to barely possibly finish that race. But I gave up without trying. Like I thought in my mind, I decided, I made a mental decision in my mind that it was not possible to finish that race, and I wasn't even going to try. Even though like a lot of things happen once you give it and you keep going, some things can happen. You get some more calories into your body, you get rehydrated with some electrolytes, you stretch a little bit, you you just keep on walking, and a lot of times your energy will go to a low and it starts to build back up again. And I really didn't let myself have that experience. So after that race, it really impacted me. And since that time, I've only had a DNF, did not finish, in a couple races, which are types of races that it's a last person standing. So it's like the only person that actually doesn't get a DNF is the person who is the very last finisher. With like last year when I won the world championship with 354 miles in 85 hours of running. So that race, and then also Barkley this year. Yeah. So the Barkley is like it's a mean beast of a race. It's the hardest race in the world, and that could be a whole nother topic we can talk about.
So quitting made you stronger.
Quitting made me stronger, and all those races where I finished and I was towards the back, like all those were impressive. They definitely formed the ground for where I am today. So, I mean, I actually didn't win my first ultra until 2010. I won a 100-mile race in Ontario, Canada, and like it set the record there. But it took me 14 years of running ultras before I won my first ultra. That's a long time. I mean, the Bengals, they have, if you imagine going 14 years.
I think we did. I think we did.
Oh, no.
So what kept you going on those 14 years? Because I bet there was, because I think you might be, is there anybody in this category of 100 man or 100 woman?
Oh, yeah, there's people that have run 100-mile races. So there's about 17 or 18 of them now.
So here's what I'm talking about. I want to put a new thing on Harvey, a new goal. You have these high. Let's see if you have this goal. Like, you're probably not the first person, but to accomplish 100 marathons and 100 ultra marathons.
Yeah, no. There is actually
that's a category.
18 people have done 100-mile races. Yeah, they've done 100-mile races.
Okay.
And I'm actually getting really close. I'm at, not close to 100 miles. I will do that in my lifetime.
Okay.
But I'm at like 92 ultras, and I've got somewhere close to about 90 marathons as well. So that is coming up for me, but I'm not the first in that.
Okay. Yeah. Is that something like what's talked about? What are the North Stars in marathoners, ultra marathoners, other than like winning the world championship?
Yeah.
Or if there was somebody in marathons winning the New York City Marathon, I'm sure that's a thing. What's the big things? Is it the combination?
I mean, that's kind of a neat thing of our sport is we actually have many specializations. So like we have the hottest races. We have the mountainous races. We have the backyards. Like we said, you have just really fast 50K races and 50-mile races. So they're really, our sport is really subdivided over lots of different areas. And like we talked about the Appalachian Trail, like that's another domain where you're going for a fastest known time. But for me personally, like this last year, I ranked as number 5, the 5th highest ultra runner in the country of Ultra Running Magazine. And that's pretty neat because that was the first time I made the top 10 list. And it was on my, I think it's, I've been running ultras for 25 years. So it's 25.
It took you that long? What took so long, man?
25 years to make the top 5. Before that, never the top 10.
What's it take to get to number 1?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, to win that, you actually really, they put a lot of emphasis on a race called Western States and another race called UTMB. So those two races get like a real large amount of the total points, but we don't have a point system. So it's difficult because it's it's definitely not like it takes a lot of interpretation. So it's open to interpretation. So there's not like a real fair a science to it necessarily. Some people were debating that we should have gotten a higher ranking than 5 last year based off our races. And this year I've actually gotten a I've run the most ultras I've ever run in a single year, with I think 11, and I've had a lot of wins. I had like 2 course records, but I don't know that I'll make the top 10 list, just because I think last year it really helped that I won Bigs overall, and this year I was the assist at Bigs. So that's a second place person. So I don't know. I might sneak in there as like number 8 or 9 or 10.
They got to give you something
But
from the previous year being number 5.
No.
No?
Because I think a lot of people who made the list last year aren't going to make the list this year. But I would say, like, where I really, it's where I do well, and maybe it kind of sounds like braggadocious here, man, like talking about myself like this.
I think you've got the opportunity. You've done the things for 25 years where you can.
But where I do really well is doing really well in different categories.
See,
so like Jim Walmsley, he's won like Ultra Runner of the Year, I think, for like the last 6 years. He's an amazing runner. But where he specializes is really fast races and like fast 100-mile races. And like where I specialize, I do like races like the Backyard Ultra. That race is many days. And I do races like 24-hour races, but I also can do like really hot races, like the hottest race in the world. And I can also do really well in short races. But I'm not the fastest in the country when it comes to a short race, like in an ultra. So like 50K, 50-miler, 100K. I'll do okay. I'll do pretty well, especially like across the nation, but I may not even make like the top 10 or 15. But where I'm really, really strong is a race of 100 miles or further, especially when it has adversity. So like I'd love to compete against Walmsley in like the Backyard.
But you like that because you have a competitive spirit for sure.
Yeah, actually I do. I do like to have fun with it, and I love, like, I think it's good sportsmanship. Like I like being, I respect all those other people, and I like that. I like it pushes me to be stronger, and it pushes the other person to be stronger, to like get a little nudging. And, I get a lot of nudging from people all the time. So for example, this Backyard Ultra, it's really something wild to watch. It's like a lot of ultras, maybe they're not quite as exciting as other sports to watch for people, maybe not, I don't know. But the Backyard Ultra, what's exciting about it is that you just don't know who's going to win that race. I mean, it starts off in the first day and everyone's tied every single lap, and you don't know how it's going to evolve. And people look like they start throwing up or they start falling over, and other people look strong and then they rebound, and you just don't know what's going to happen to the end. And it really takes a lot of strategy, and it also takes a lot of the mindset. You got to get into the right mindset, and you also have to really endure extremely high pressures and just go through it, like, and find a way through it.
So when I heard you talking about, hey, you might not be the fastest, all right, those 100-milers, maybe that's not your specialty. But what I thought about was, as you were saying, I was like, I'm like, man, why is he like the long ones? And it takes more of it's a mindset one in that game, isn't it?
Is more of a mindset. Like
right.
the body is still critical. Like you have to work your body like you never dreamed before to get so ready for those kind of things. But it's so important, the mindset. Like you have to really just go to places and explore those places you can go to in your mind to take you through really harsh environments.
All right.
Yeah.
The hardest moment. So that race that you just won, that 354-miler.
Yeah.
What was the name of that one?
That is Big's Backyard World Championship.
That sounds so sweet, doesn't
it? It's exploded. Like from this humble location back in this crazy guy Laz.
In Tennessee?
In Tennessee, yeah. From his backyard, like it's now a race, and like they've got these races in over 60 countries. Like thousands of people now run it. So it's kind of wild.
So that 354-miler, if you go back, we're going to get into the Harvey mind here. the hardest moment of that race, mentally, when was it?
Yeah, the hardest place actually for that in that particular race was, believe it or not, it was right around about 170 some miles into it, and I had it's challenging. You're in this like cold night. Basically, you go out and back 4.167 miles every hour, and so it's the second night, so you're tired from the first night, staying up all night long, and then you're into the second night of you try to lay down and fall asleep for 5 minutes or 4 minutes or 3 minutes, but it's not really quite the same thing as having a full night's sleep.
It's not?
No, not quite. So going out, you get to a place where if you let your mind go there, you could just be like, why am I doing this? This is just really exhausting, and it just felt maybe I didn't want to give up, but I was feeling a lot of fatigue. Your muscles fatigued, you're like just sleepy, you're tired, and you start to mind starts to wander a little bit about, well, how's this gonna feel in like 4 hours, or how's this gonna feel tomorrow, and we might not even be done tomorrow. So then you get your mind into a wrong set of thinking. And so I went back to my aid station, which we got every 4.167 miles. You get back to your aid station and you've got to restart the lap on the hour, every hour. That's when Laz blows the whistle. So when I went back, I actually quietly, without anyone else hearing, because they were also shooting video at the time. It was like a live feed, and there were other competitors around. But I spoke real quietly with my crew member, who's a good friend of mine, and I just told him, I said, Judd, I'm really struggling. I'm not giving up. I don't want to give up, but I just want to let you know I'm really struggling. And anything you might have to you can share with me to help me out now, I would need it. And he's like, Harvey, he just came up with this idea, and I was like, damn. He's like, Harvey, just imagine you're running to work each time you go out that way. And it worked. I literally just from that point on, every time for the nighttime loop, which is an out and back, I would just envision that I was just running to work. And running to work to me is automatic. I've been doing it now for 9.5 years, every single day. Rain, snow, hot, cold, doesn't matter. If the cars can't make it, I'll still make it. Yeah, every day. It's just I don't struggle with it because it's just something automatic. It's like putting on my clothes. I don't have to wrestle with my mind. I just do it.
Isn't that wild that you're the guy doing it? You're at 175 miles. You've done that loop 40-something times already. And you speak to the team and the people you've built around you, and you're like, I don't have the answer right now. If there's anything you got, give it to me. And it was the simplest thing that he feeds into your mind. And you're like, I got this. Man, how important it is to have the right people around you.
It's so important. I mean, it's so critical in everything we do on this planet, no matter what you're involved with. I mean, having someone in your circle that you can confide in or get some positive push from, and choosing your circle wisely. I mean, I knew that having Judd there was the best possible choice. There was only a few people I would have selected for that role. And I mean, if I had any number of other people, I just wouldn't have actually been able to complete the race at the same intensity that I did, without a doubt.
That's fascinating. And is he a runner himself?
We actually, not exactly, but yes, he is and he isn't, because he does a lot of different things. He actually never ran a marathon until he was close to 40. And he was on this flight, and on the flight they had this documentary about the Marathon des Sables. It's a race in Morocco. And he's like, oh man, I'd like to do that.
Oh, yeah, would he?
Yeah, he just jumps right into it. So he literally ran, I think he ran one marathon before he ran that race. And then we actually met in the Marathon des Sables. They group you by country, and like we happened to be sharing a tent with like I think about 10 or 12 other Americans and a South African and some others. And yeah, we became friends through that. I mean, if you like think about the whole length of human history and how much as humans we spent outdoors, and then think about modern society and how much time we spend outdoors today. I mean, that's one of the things about the Appalachian Trail, doing that, the Like Harvey, Like Son. I mean, for that journey, we literally covered 50 days where I was outside. The only time I was like not was when I was sleeping in a van for like 6 or 7 hours and sometimes 4 hours. And the rest of the time I was purely outside. And, you know, there's something like I feel very calm in life. Like I don't get rattled very easily, like with teaching as well. Like I mean, I might have a rough day, but just leaving work and like running home. I mean, I have the luxury to run home because I'm not that far from my school. It's like 3 miles. And, you know, a lot of times I take a longer route, but, you know, not everyone can do that. You know, I understand that, but I think getting outdoors is really important for people's health, like their mental health, their physical health. And I mean, I say to my students, but it's something that, you know, when I look at different cities, like that's one thing you like, if you're in Minnesota, you see a lot more people out and about. And if you're in Colorado, you see a lot more people out and about. And so I just think with the tri-state area, like we do have a lot of people who like to get outside. But I'm just saying, like as a whole, our population does not get out as much as like Minnesota or Colorado. And I think it would help us.
I can't even imagine what 300 miles of running is. I just can't. And so for me to elevate my mind to go to another place of what I'm capable of, I know what it was like at 170 miles when you thought about, hey, man, I just need something. What are all those thoughts? Like, where's your mind go? And 300 miles, it's all you. You're alone. Yeah. What's your mind tell you?
Yeah, so I usually break it down into small units. So I always like focus on, in that particular race, just every hour. And I do the best I can to not think ahead. So I may think just for snapshot, like, oh, wow, we're already at mile 200. Or I may think, okay, just for a snapshot, all right, I know this is going to go at least 300 miles. But then I try to take that away and I just focus on the moment at hand, the next hour. Because that's all, if I start thinking beyond that, I'll lose myself. Like I just have to focus on that. And a lot of times it's about like within that time focusing on the strategy and like elements like, okay, I need to make sure I drink this, eat this. I need to get some of that, my other 2 times used shirt. I need to I need to do something. So there's a lot of things are happening in my mind. And when you're really tired, it's hard to remember a list. So you're running and you're trying to think, okay, I got 3 things I got to do when I get back to that tent. So that takes up a little bit of mind. And then when you're doing that, it's actually positive because you're not thinking like, oh, I'm like totally disaster, wiped out. I try not to think about the discomfort, but that helps. The other thing I do is on the trail, there's 11 hours on the trail and it's like about 400 feet of climbing and it's got little technical areas and we're not allowed to have music on the trail most of the time. Sometimes Laz lets us in the later days when it's like 3rd or 4th day. But on the road, you can have music. So I actually like to listen to music because I don't ever take any pain medicine. There are some, maybe ultra runners that might do that, but I think it's a bad idea. Like I think it's a bad idea because it's rough on your kidneys, and it's also really it's like you're gonna mask something that could be an injury, or you're not gonna respond to it. So I believe that everything that's discomfort, I have to deal with it like through my mind, and that's how I do it. So I will listen to music if I'm feeling like, and I'm not running through pain like in terms of joint pain or I did break my hand in the race, so that would have been pain. But It was more like numbness.
Did you keep running?
I kept running. Yeah. So that race, I like envisioned myself sometimes as the honey badger. So there's a really funny
Those are
YouTube.
mean animals,
They're
man.
mean animals, and there's a really funny like YouTube video. If you've never seen it, it's like had like 10 million views. I mean, it's like this guy narrating the honey badger, and it's like the honey badger gets in a fight with a king cobra, and the cobra bites him, and the honey badger passes out, and then the honey badger wakes back up and eats the cobra. It's like, so that was my mindset in the race, and it was like no matter what happened, I was just gonna keep going until I literally passed out, or I was so broken that I couldn't even move. But otherwise, I was just going to keep going till the very last person. And it was in my mind. I mean, it's really tough. You've got 30 other runners who are all champions at other backyards competing at this race. So these are really hardened people. I mean,
so why do you think you're the one in that moment? Why are you the one?
I had at that particular race, I had some things working for me. I had prepared for the race. So I really worked hard to prepare. I mean, I worked hard. I worked hard. I ran 3 times a day. I mean, every day. There wasn't a day I ever took off. And I'd run like tonight. Like we'll finish this podcast. I'm gonna go run for a couple hours. Like I just run. I don't know what time I get home. Doesn't matter. It'll be like 10 o'clock. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
You're an animal, man.
I keep training. I train very hard, but I also like have a lot of good strategies. So I'm a good strategist, and I watch. I'm like, I like observe. I observe the other people. I like playing. I like the psychological competitive element to the race too. There's a lot of psychology that goes into the fight. The battle. And also I have surrounded myself with the best crew chief, Judd, who I was telling you about. He was the best of anyone that could have been there for any team. And so, when you surround yourself with like amazing people, that helps for amazing stuff to happen.
So it took you, this is something that every day I'm looking for the algorithm to transfer to people I'm around. Because I think what I've found is, and when I started this real estate company, I said, man, everyone wants to live a better life. That's a fundamental belief I've had. But they don't know how. I don't know why they don't know how. I don't know why you know how to do it via ultra marathons and accomplish the top level. I don't know why whatever limited amount of success I've had, right? I've achieved a decent amount, but there's still a long way to go. It's a long game. And I'm sitting here listening to that story. You're like, well, it's a lot of factors. I'm like, okay, but it all comes down to this place that in your mind you're like, I'm not quitting. And you're like, okay, well, I trained. I had the right crew chief, right? And so what I'm sitting here thinking is like, oh, you learned all that. You learned all that was important through all the losses that you had, all the second place finishes. Every race you've run, because you were looking at it like, hey, I'm going to do this for a long time, and I want to be better, and it's an analytical game. Let me learn something every time. And without all those races, without all those losses, you probably wouldn't know that all the strategy was important.
No. Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's it definitely informed all that. And
so that's what I'm wondering. Did you know along the way? Did you know that was important along the way, that all those lessons you were learning?
Oh, no way. I did not. I mean, I honestly, I never even imagined that it was possible to do the things I'm doing today. Like back when I was in my 20s, I thought like 130 miles in 24 hours seemed like a somewhat lofty goal.
Oh, that's lofty.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, it's lofty.
And so it's wild because, this year, for example, I won. I got the record on the course I ran my first ultra in back in 96. And back in 96, I ran this race. I ran 81.25 miles over 24 hours, and it was a run-walk type deal. But I was just elated to get 81.25 miles. And then this is 26 years later. I've been back to this race, I think eight, maybe 7 times. Yeah, 7 times. And I got the course record with 148.68 miles. It's just wild, like that. It's my mind is different today than it was when I was in my 30s. I wouldn't have thought that was possible. Yeah, it's wild. It's interesting because we do put a governor on ourselves at times with what we think is achievable and what's achievable, and that's where today I feel like my record in the 24 hours 160.609 miles, and I got that in 2019 in Albi, France at the World Championship, and I'm not the best in the world at the 24-hour race, but I feel like I can still beat that 160-mile mark, which is kind of neat at 46. Like I really believe I'm still going to get higher mileage than that. And I don't know, I might be a little delusional, but it's kind of fun to think that way. And I like that. I think that fits with the entrepreneurial spirit too, because you think about, what are we capable of achieving is in our own lives with whatever you dream of doing. And to have like those, goal plans for like, okay, what's our goal today? The goal for the week, the goal for the month, the goal for the year, the goal for the next 5 years. Where are we going with this? Like and yeah, so I mean, it's like there's a fire inside. A lot of people look at running and like exercise as being something that's like just difficult.
Yeah.
And it is difficult when you're first into it. Like the first couple of weeks, it's difficult in different stages. But for me, it's like I love running. I love it. I love it. So it's not, I don't every day love it. I mean, there are days I really have to push myself to get out the door as well. But I don't have time to, look at my shoes for 30 minutes and think about running. I got to get to work.
So, you know what I think what's special about that is that you can accomplish the same things different ways.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a great thing about ultra running. I mean, it's like, I think overall, like with our sport, there is a lot of support for each other.
Is anybody else in your life, were they runners?
My sister. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess my dad, he was maybe when he was a young man, but, yeah, my sister, she used to run like track, when she was in high school. And, at that point I was like, man, this is crazy. Yeah. That was the time where I just really only think about chasing the ice cream truck down the street or running to the end of the street seemed like that's too far. It was on the 4th of July and this car spun out in front of me, and like literally they spun out on like kind of an area that had some oil buildup, and then I went to brake. I was 100 meters back, but when I braked, I literally was going to go right towards them. I went off the road to the right, and then my car got sideways into this ditch and just rolled like 4 times. And I had heard my neck crack, but I didn't know that it actually broke my neck. And fortunately, I ended up on the other side of that. And yeah, I had the discomfort, and there was no one that told me that things were that you could do even more than you did before when you broke your neck. No one said that. Like the doctors didn't mention that part. I was like, well, that's part of the whole package. I didn't know that. Yeah, so I mean, I just started walking back and forth to work, and then there were like rules about what I could do. I had this like neck brace on all the time. And then after like 3 months, I ran the Columbus Marathon, like just hopped back into it. After I got the neck brace off, ran the Columbus Marathon, and my time then was like an hour and 20 minutes slower, but then before, hour and a half slower. I don't know how long. It took me about a whole year to get back to where I was prior to that, like hitting like around the 3 hour 15 mark or something like that. And then it just kept going. Like I just kept on chiseling away. It was like I always envisioned, I like the film The Count of Monte Cristo and also Shawshank's Redemption. So I kind of think of it a little bit like Shawshank's, that like there's this tunnel. I'm just like chipping away. No one's really seeing what's going on there. And all of a sudden, like, what has happened? So I was just chipping away at it. And yeah, so I mean, it literally took me like 6 years from there to win that 100-mile race, which was kind of an obscure little 100-mile race in Ontario. And then just chipping away, like adventures, going to India, following Gandhi's Salt March, 241 miles, like going down to Selma, running the Selma Civil Rights March, like going and seeing these people that inspired me. So then going to Haiti, like, so I mean, going to Haiti and doing 100K from Port-au-Prince and meeting like David, one of my friends who is a remarkable individual. And like, when I go to these developing countries, like one lady I remember in Haiti, like she was so poor, she was carrying like trash, like from there was a lot of trash everywhere, unfortunately, in Haiti, because they don't really have really good trash organization. But I mean, literally she was making money from like carrying something out of the trash area that would maybe be worth like 10 cents or 5 cents in America. And like, that's like an hour of her work. And it's like, you think about the type of hardships that people are experiencing outside America or in these developing countries. And in some cases, it's places inside America. And you think about these hardships. And like, when I think about that, when I'm running bigs, I do think about it. And it just gives me a lot of spirit, like an energy.
So there's a couple things here. You don't have a coach.
No, I don't actually. I don't have a coach, but I also kind of consider like the people that have informed my life story along the journey as all being part of that coaching. My dad. Like, I mean, just seeing his resiliency, like in his 80s. My stepmother, the way that she interacts with people and like her relationship with people as a social worker. My partner, my fiance, my mother, like she overcame that stroke that she had in 1995. She's still living independently. She has a speech impediment and she has like limited mobility, but she lives independently. And like, that's some incredible resiliency there. I mean, it's like, there's a lot of really resilient people in this world, and people are like neighbors, people that don't get credit for what they're doing, that are remarkable people. When I'm running through Cincinnati, believe it or not, like I see people every day. Like every day I see one of my students. Every single day I see one of my students, someone that follows me on social media perhaps, some other runner, even like the workers in the city park workers, the garbage truck, like they know me. I will say, when I go up through there, there's a whole group of them. I'm like, hey, what's up going on? And they'll be like, ah. So I get some nice, like, it's almost like it's like that scene from Rocky where he's running through like the little market. And he's getting the positive cheers. I get that kind of positive cheers from people in our community, and that makes me want to really strive. So I mean, it's like interesting. You look at like a professional sports team like the Bengals or like the Reds, and like, it's so interesting. Like, just on my run here today, I saw like the last 2 or 3 guys were leaving the practice squad over there for the Bengals, and they've been on quite a winning streak right now.
When you think on all those hours and hours of running, do you think there should be a general purpose of this life? Because that's where my mind has been a ton. And it's almost like a compound effect in life where you just learn something new based upon what you learned yesterday. And it starts opening up your mind to where you just go to these places trying to figure out, like, what's this about? What's my role? What's my job here? What's my responsibility? And we have to balance selfishness and selflessness because we all have some of both. What's this purpose of life?
Yeah, that's such a critical thing because literally it's like your why statement. And when it, like for example, with my A races, like I actually write out a why statement, which is unique. I don't know a lot of people who do that. And I don't do that with all my races. Only like 4 races, maybe a year. And it's like finding that why is so critical. And it's what I'm trying to do with my students as well. Because it's like right now, it's exciting because I have juniors and I have a senior and 1 sophomore. But it's like they're at this exciting crossroads where there's so many different directions they can take life. And it's like finding their why or purpose is like the number one thing that can really like ignite your fire. You know, it's so critical. For me personally, I've got lots of whys. So I mean, I get, you know, I do as a teacher, like we do kind of have like a little bit of an altruistic bend where we have an interest in like, you know, helping others. But I also like being a lifelong learner. Like, I mean, you know, if I'm like, not just running. I mean, the reason I kind of admire Mike Fremont so much is because it's like he's continuously learning. You know, I interact with the guy, and he's always bringing me articles every time I see him. He's got like a stack of magazines and articles for me to read. I'm like, Mike, I can't keep up with all this reading here, buddy. But it's like, I love that. Like this idea that it's like life is an adventure, and it's exciting because it's dynamic and it's changing, and it's like it can have its extremely, you know, it's dark places as well, but you know, the excitement is in the adventure of like the unknown too, you know, like where we're going with it.
So what's the purpose of this why? Why is that so important to establish that? So on your A races.
Yeah. So that's what keeps me motivated in the game. So like, for example, when I get to that place where most people would quit, what keeps me driven is that why. What is it that's propelling me? Why must I not quit? Why must I continue? And if I don't write that down, I might let it go. And so I literally like to write it down.
It's for the tough times.
For the tough times.
If you can establish that why before the hard time comes, I think you'll keep going. You know, it's easy on the good days to keep going. You know, when the students are in good moods, when the weather's nice on the good run, when your body's feeling good.
Oh, yeah.
And you're thinking like, man.
Yeah, you're right.
You're at mile 50 and you're like, man, was it what I ate? Was it just I had good sleep?
Yeah.
Right? It's those tough times. And maybe that's our job, to try to help people figure out their why. You for your students, me for my realtors and people that want to change their life financially. It's important. But I didn't always know my why in the beginning.
No.
How do we find it? How do you find that? Like when you're searching it out for one of your A races.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's like, for me, people. Like, I mean, people is a real important aspect to it. So, I mean, it's like I feel like we do, if I'm doing it for myself, I'm not as driven as if I'm doing it for somebody else, or I'm doing it for like a cause, something that compels me. So, I mean, like it's got to be for something more than yourself. I feel like to reach that highest pinnacle, I mean, you could be driven to do things for, you know, your own motivations and but to like reach that highest level, it's when you're reaching to, you know, help someone else. We did this, so we were not successful in getting the fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail. We came in like 8th fastest.
Damn
time.
It, Harvey!
I know we would not make it. But, you know, it was not for the part of not trying. I mean, I broke my body so many times on that trail, and it seemed that it was like insurmountable weight on my shoulders. Like, I mean, I literally one time felt like if I was to make a metaphor, said it was like the equivalent of having a sumo wrestler laying on top of you and trying to move. Like, that's how beat up I was. But somehow, just focusing on the next furthest distance we could see, the next mile, my dad, like, being an incredibly positive support team. And, we managed to make it through those extremely difficult points to get back on track. But, ultimately we finished the 8th fastest time, with that endeavor.
The intro to Like Harvey, Like Son. There's a moment in there where your dad says, "Oh, we're going to finish the race."
Yeah. I'm glad he had that sort of faith. Sometimes my dad used to be like thinking, "Son, this is not a good idea, this ultra running." I can't tell you how many times he told me that back in the 90s. He's like, "You're going to ruin your knees, and there's going to be all kinds of issues, and with that, and this just isn't healthy."
He didn't learn. So I don't have any children. Do you?
I do have a son.
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't. But so here's what parents need to learn. I can speak to this because I was a kid. They need to know that what they tell you to do, you're not going to, right. And what they tell you not to do, you're going to. And so I don't know if I said that right, but he should have said, "I think this is the best thing ever. I think you should go run 100 miles today. It's easy. You may never have been an ultra marathon."
I mean, truly, you're absolutely right, and that's another thing, because it's interesting, the psychology, because you have on one end, the motivation of having some people in your life that have somehow impacted you and given you extra like wind in your sails, but then on the other hand, you could have like the individual that tells you it's not possible, you can't do that. And you know what? I mean, I draw on probably even more motivation when someone tells me I can't do something than someone telling me you can do something.
See?
And it's so true. It is absolutely. I love that. I love when someone tells me you can't do that. It's like one of the most powerful things out there.
Why don't we learn that though too? Because that's always the people that want to see you fall that say that.
Oh yeah.
So many of them are, and I'm not saying that parents aren't trying to look out for us, but it's like, hey, if you really want someone to fall, do not challenge that person, because you might wake up a beast inside of someone. You don't want that. I say to people so often, I'm like, I like to be underestimated. I do.
Yeah.
It does something special for me.
Yeah, I love it.
I do.
I love that.
Underestimate
I
me.
love it.
Yeah. And so why do you like it?
Well, I've always been that role. I've always been the underdog until like the last couple years.
So how's it working now since you're not the underdog? You were number 5, so like here comes number 5.
Yeah. It makes it, like, for example, this last backyard ultra, it is tougher coming in as a number 1 seeded runner. There's an expectation of performance.
The pressure.
There's like all eyes are, you're the target. So there is a level of pressure with that, but it can be fun too.
It can be. So I guess guys like Harvey, I don't have to have you on my team, but I probably don't want to go against the team that you're on.
Yeah, you don't want to be against me.
If you're on the sidelines, it's okay.
You don't want to be against my team, man.
I can tell that.
Yeah, I think most of the teams I've been on in the last few goes that have won all out. Yeah, and I might not be the strongest guy on the team, but it's like I may, in fact, like right now, it's kind of one of the things that's been in my background is a 24-hour race. So we went back to fans, what I told you about in the beginning. That race I ran first time back in 1996. So right now, I'm like, I've been on the USA national team for the World Championship like longer than any of the men and women, and it's like more than 12 years now. We had a couple races that were canceled over the years, but I've been on it 5 times. And the next one's going to be in Taipei next December. And right now I'm listed as number 5 on the team. I may end up being on the team. I'm going to give everything I can get to get on that team, just like with the Big's Backyard Ultra Championship. But I may not be the person that has the furthest distance on that team, but I'm going to help everyone on the team to be the best they can be too. Like, I really believe I can have a positive influence on them. It's like what we talk about before the race even starts. and then coming together as a team, where it's like I want everyone on that team to be successful. It's not like my goal to beat them. My goal is like to do my role, but my goal is for them to be their best. But I'm also going out in the woods, and we train for like this crazy race we didn't talk about yet, Barkley.
Let's go.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Barkley was it is the animal of craziness. I mean, it's just such a crazy race because you have like 120 miles where you have to run in 60 hours, and you have to like run 60% of it off trail on extremely steep like inclines, and you climb the equivalent of Mount Everest from sea level to top twice in 60 hours. And you have to, while you're doing this the character I was telling you about, Laz, you have to basically find these books he's hidden in the wilderness. So this all happens down in Tennessee, only 4.5 hour drive from Cincinnati, 4 hour drive from Cincinnati, in the Frozen Head State Park. And it's like really difficult to do the navigating when it's dark, foggy, rainy, and 32 degrees. It's really difficult. It's wet.
Laz, for the record's a terrible human being.
Yeah.
For the record, hiding books. So as I wanted to get back into your story, but you do realize what you've just told us, that 120 miles, right?
Well, it's supposed to be a 100-mile race, but everyone knows it's really like 125 miles. Like there's no exact measurements because in every year it kind of evolves, and he's always trying to make it slightly tougher.
He's a horrible human being.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. He's a genius.
125 miles in 60 hours. Okay. That's 2.5 days, right? I'm just making sure that you know what you're doing.
I guess it's
here.
about 2.5 days. It seems like a lifetime. It's more like a lifetime.
You guys are okay. So get back into Laz. I just want to establish, for the record, that I think he's a horrible human being.
he creates the venues for ordinary people to do really extraordinary things.
So it's called Barkley.
Barkley. Yeah, it's named after one of his neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
All right. So these books to navigate, it's really tough.
Well, yeah, the books, he chooses the books based on his humor of the year. So, like, I mean, they usually have titles like You're Going to Die, or Hell is Real, or Just Give Up. Like, he finds these really funny titles. You know what I mean? Like, and then you got to go, what you got to do is you got to follow his directions, which are really cryptic. And, I mean, each, book has, like, a paragraph you got to follow. So you got to go, like, all right, go northeast, up the re-entrant, find the beech tree that seems bigger than all the others, and the book will be underneath the roots of that beech tree. And there's like 20 beech trees. So sometimes it can be a little challenging, especially if you're a virgin. Like it's your first year doing it. And last year was my first year running this Barkley race. It's definitely the most difficult race on the planet, no doubt about it. It's no one has finished it in the last 5 years, and since 1984, only 15 people have finished the race. So the thing is, it's just right on the cusp of what is possible for a human being to do. Maybe, So it's like it's possible, and it's like you think it's possible, but it's like you have to have everything come together like just perfectly in a crescendo to make it actually ever come true. It would be like the scene of Indiana Jones where he's literally rolling underneath the door and the door slams. That trap door slams shut. And that's the way it will be the next time someone finishes Barkley.
So no one ever quits. It's just how far do you get within the 60 hours?
Oh no, a lot of people quit. They get scared and they get tired, they get cold, they get sick. A lot of people quit. Most people quit. But yeah, there are a lot of people that they just get timed out. So
what happened to you last year?
Well, it was kind of I guess I quit. I did quit. So it's kind of like a quit.
So what'd you learn then? What'd you learn for this
What
year?
happened was I was halfway through loop number 2. Loop number 1 went well. Loop number 2, we couldn't find a book. It was like the 6th book. We 6 or 7 book. It was raining, pure dark. Our visibility was down to like maybe like 7 or 8 feet. I mean, it was just raining really hard, 32 degrees. And Courtney Dauwalter, who's just an amazing runner in herself.
You took number 2 to her in a race.
I did. She has been the number 1 female ultra runner of the year numerous years, and she's by far the most famous ultra runner in America. Maybe David Goggins and her might be pretty, like, he might have her slightly on that one, but she's amongst the ultra running world. She is definitely like just an amazing person. And what you see from her on social media is exactly the way she is in person. Like, I mean, it's not like you get 2 different characters. Like, she is
That's
as sincere as she can be when no one's watching, and it's somebody that, I mean, she is like just a really good, amazing person. But yeah, she beat me at Biggs in 2020. I was number 2 with her. And we've been on the same team together for the 24-hour race. Anytime I'm on the team with Courtney, it's like definitely an amazing experience. She's just a very supportive person. It's not like she's extremely competitive, but with her extremely competitive nature, it's not like she's trying to tear down the person next to her. It's like she makes other people greater as well.
Isn't it good when you have a team event and there's that person who shows up and you're like, oh, we got a shot.
Yeah.
Because of them, we got a shot. Them.
Yeah, I mean, we've had pretty amazing teams in America, like in terms of world championships in the running category for many years.
So you guys quit because you couldn't find a book, Harvey?
I know, it sounds pathetic. I know. Well, we just like, we were getting really cold, and I mean, I was just like, it's not like there's some beacon on you, and it's not like no one's coming to rescue you out there. So, I mean, anything happens, you're responsible for yourself. Like, no one knows where you are exactly. I mean, they could like figure out, like, based on like the last book's page torn, but that could take like 10 hours to figure out where the heck roughly someone is, and then narrow it down from there. So yeah, we ended up like saying like, okay, we were out there for quite a while, like maybe a half hour, an hour, like I think an hour, searching for that book, and we just were unable to find it, and a time was passing, and we're just getting, when you slow down and it's 32 degrees, I mean, it's really interesting when you're running in the rain. Like, I like when it rains. Like, I like when it's cold and it rains. But when it's cold and it rains and you're out there for a couple hours and you got like your equipment on, that's cool. Then you're out there for like 5 or 6 hours. Okay. And then go out there for like 10 hours and see how you feel. Like, it's like you might as well just be swimming in a lake that's, 32 degrees, because it feels about the same. If you're so I learned a lot from that experience. And I also felt like in that circumstance, I wasn't just responsible for myself. It was like Courtney and I. And, so if we were both pretty cold, I knew I was cold, and I knew she was wearing slightly less than I was. So I knew she must be at least as cold as me, and if not more cold. So, I mean, getting from there to getting out, if anything happened to either one of us, like, then that would be, I didn't want her to be responsible for me. And also, it would be hard for me to get both of us out if something happened to her. So, and I mean, you're dealing with a lot of like crazy exposure. I mean, you got creeks we're crossing, you got rocks that are slippery. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles out there. So that day I said, okay, this Barkley thing is new to me. And like this, I'm going to like take these lessons. we're going to hike it back to camp, which was not easy. We had to climb up a steep, like, steep hillside. I think they call it Meat Grinder. I'm not sure if that's the name of that one. But, yeah, I mean, it took us like all 3 or 4 hours to get back, it seemed. And, yeah, I mean, I didn't regret that because it was a learning experience. And, you know, it's kind of like Fight Club out there. We don't actually say if we're doing the race again or this or that. But, yeah, I'm going to do that race again. I'm not telling you when, but I'm going to do that race again. And I hope to take those lessons. And, you know, it's kind of great to fail at something too, you know, because failing makes you better if you don't give up.
So how do we know when to quit? How do we know?
So for me, it depends on the situation, of course. But like definitely with running, the only time I would quit is if I actually had like something that I was potentially injuring that would impact me long term. Yeah, that's the only time I'll quit. Or in the case of Barkley, you know, it felt like we were putting ourselves in a circumstance that it could be bad. Like, you know, I mean, those situations could turn bad.
They could, and they do for people.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you know when it could be okay.
And so the only reason why it's okay to quit is if you learn from it and you come back again. So going back to this 25-year journey you've been on with running, and because I'm always trying to learn lessons. I'm trying to grow from the people that are around me. That process of learning and growing and developing and this evolution of your mind, because we talked about, could you have connected this purpose of life when you were 25? Could you have articulated it the same way as you can now? The Harvey that sits in front of me today that's accomplished everything you have, you couldn't have been that same guy if you wouldn't have kept going, keep compounding the learning, keep compounding the growth. Not everyone is as resilient as you are, man. They're not.
Like, you got to start doing things that no one else does. Like, I mean, and that's like for what I've experienced, like that's part of what it is. Like, I mean, for me, it's like I don't follow other people. I do my own thing too. I learn from other people, but I do a lot of crazy, weird stuff. You know, yes, Sunday I was running with rocks like in my hands. You know what I mean? It's like I run with my backpack back and forth to work every day. You know, it's like I race the bus on the way to work. I love racing the bus. I love it. And I just, I do that because it's like maybe once every 6 months, I actually beat the bus. And like, it's like, I love the reaction of those people on that bus. They look out the window and they're like, that man, what is this going on? It's just the funniest sight. Like, they're like, what the? I want to use what just happened? How did he do that? So, I mean, I love that. That's like so much fun. But it doesn't matter if I come in last in the race. I almost came in last in a race this year. I did something totally new. It was the Leadville 100 race. And I didn't know. I was like, okay, I've got this mindset that, hey, I do anything. Just give it to me. I'll go and I'm going to get it. Well, you know, I'm coming from Cincinnati, which is like 490 feet above sea level. And Leadville is at 10,200 feet. It's like the tallest city in America. And I'm like, this race averages over 10,000 feet. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll just like get off work on Thursday. I'll get on the flight. No problem. I'm going to get there. I'll take one day off work Friday and I'll do the race. No problem. So, yeah, I start the race 40 miles into it. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing pretty. It's about where I want to be. Like, you know, I'm in like range of like hitting top 5 to top 10. That's exactly where I want to be. Well, yeah, I get to the big mountain push, mile 40 plus, and I was like, it just felt like I hit like kryptonite or something. Like it's just that elevation. It hasn't impacted me like that before. And it didn't entirely wipe me out, but it pushed me way back, and I ran too fast in the beginning. So I mean, adapting to that by moving or going to that race and staying there to acclimate like 8 to 10 days beforehand would be just an incredible difference. And you know, I struggled. I ended up like finishing the race, I think, with about an hour and 20 minutes to go. And, I was like 200 and something of the race. But, that was also really fun. Even though I was like nearly the last person to finish, I had a lot of fun with the crew I was with. I had a lot of fun with like the sights. Like, I mean, it was beautiful coming up over Hope Pass and like just learning, I was like, it was like you're in the Matrix and you're just sucking it in, like just seeing, like learning the impact of like the elevation truly. Cause I've run a lot of races that you go up, like Badwater. I went up to 14.5 in chasing, getting the record of the fastest known time from the lowest to highest place in the 48 states. But I wasn't up there the whole duration. It's just like 4 hours up and then sometime take your time going back down. But like, yeah, being at that elevation, it was a real, and so, yeah, it was.
So you couldn't do the same thing.
You couldn't do it, but that's okay. It was,
yes.
It was fun in a way. Some
sort
of masochistic way.
You got checked a little bit. Oh, okay. Well, maybe Harvey's not all that, huh?
Right. But that's okay. It's all right.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I'm excited for 2023. So you said 22's been a good year.
Right.
What is Harvey going to accomplish in 2023 as we wrap this thing up?
I'm going to go for running, since we've been talking about running. I'm definitely going to go for like winning the world championship of backyard ultras again. So that's 2023. It's going to have 75 of the top like runners in the world, like all people that have won backyard ultras in their own country. So this is a real hardened group of people. I mean, and most everyone wants to win at this point. So for me to win, I have to do something I've never done before. I'm not exactly sure what that is yet, but I'll let you know afterwards.
You know what you could do? Have you ever done any fundraising around a race?
Yeah. Lots of times, like different in times.
What's the most that you've ever raised?
We raise for the gospel mission in Cincinnati. We raised like over like $10,000 when we did the run from the lowest to highest point, the 146, the Badwater 146, and City Gospel Mission. And like that definitely, that's a good point. Is because I was driven in that, because like we talked about, like not just my personal, I definitely want to do well, but when I'm running along the journey and my friend tells me, oh yeah, we've already raised $5,000, and like people are seeing this, that motivated me more to try to get that goal.
So since we can accomplish anything we can put our minds to, let me throw something out about a fundraising perspective that Harvey could have. It's serious. What about if you go out to the partners in Cincinnati and around and say, hey, I don't want you to give me money just to run the race because I was already number one. What happens if I finish number one? Maybe a goal of $100,000. If you finish number one, to get commitments from people in the community that they will fund $100,000 to the nonprofit of your choice if you win.
That'd be pretty incredible. I might die because I won't give up. Yeah. So that'd be quite extraordinary. Absolutely.
You need to put together a team to do it, because I think that from who you are, I think you give every ounce of everything you've got to give $100,000 back to that community.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't know how to do it, man, but I'm just telling you that might be something.
That's super powerful. Yeah. I'll leave it in my book of
ideas,
tricks. Yeah. All
right, man. I'm just saying.
No. I'm not saying no to it. I do like the idea. It's possible.
I'll give you $5,000.
Oh, you will?
If you win.
If I win. Well, that's huge.
$5,000 to whatever.
Towards a charity, and local charity.
Choose.
That's huge. Wow, thank you. Well, I mean, I will accept that, like, on behalf of the charity, and geez, that's super powerful.
So if I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
I guarantee there's another 19 people in this community that'll make the same commitment.
That's amazing.
All right.
That's beautiful, extraordinary, and wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm 100% in.
Okay.
100%. And I don't know what Laz is gonna think of this whole crazy angle, but that's gonna be sweet. And I just don't want to let you guys down. However, I'm gonna give everything I got to make this happen.
Okay. So
yeah.
I need
so
some.
I'm just gonna give it all I got. So that's all I can do.
So I'll find another 5 or 6 people. Okay. So we'll have Pivot give $5K, but you got to win.
Okay. Yeah, I've got to win.
You got to win.
And we might get some help from some other folks on this one.
So yeah. I'll find 5 or 6. I'll find 25 or 30
that's incredible.
grand. Okay.
Man, that is absolutely. That's probably about one of the wildest things that ever happened on podcasts for me.
Let's go, baby. I'm serious. It'll be.
It's like it's such a incredible, like, generous thought you have.
The best $5,000 I've ever spent in my life, because there's no better feeling that I personally give than really trying to give back and change other people's lives. It's the most special things I ever feel.
Yeah,
right. No pressure, baby. Hey, so when is this? When's the race?
Well, we got a little time to do the fundraising, because it's not until mid-October of 23. And it's going to be a big deal. Like, we're going to go for this, and wow, that's going to be something magical, man.
$100,000.
Yeah, that's.
I'm confident. Here's the thing.
Hey, I don't mind. I think that's some good pressure there.
I have no doubt that we can come up with this.
Yeah,
I have no doubt.
I'm gonna have to really work on my sleeping.
All right, man. Hey,
that's an important part of the race.
Well, listen,
believe it or not,
hard work is what you have to do. Raising the money is the easy part, man.
Yeah, no, that's something special.
Okay,
special. I'm super psyched about that.